that are hidden, if we can spark a conversation through these films, or if we can tell people that this is what is going on and give it importance, I think it makes a huge difference.
So you're saying if the right story came along and the right material came along, you're open to doing like a long format series?
I think I'll be open to do anything that excites me as a person and as an actor. I've never followed any norm.
Yeah.
I've never, I don't know, it has been instinctive in my way that I don't like to follow a kind of pattern that I'm supposed to be following, but I like to follow my heart, and whatever my heart leads me to is something that I've always done. When people say that, is there a secret to how you select your films, or is there something that drives you? I think it's just my emotional core. Something that I kind of relate with, because if I have to spend time with a particular subject for 100 days of my life, I have to be very passionate about it.
And the first place is instinct. The first thing is instinct.
Yes, instinct, because if I hear a story, or if I hear a character that I instinctively feel connected to, and that character is speaking something important, or saying something important that is talking for women, I think that really excites me.
Rani, after all these years, has your process of picking films changed?
Yes, of course. Because when I was in my 20s or in my teenage years, there were different reasons I did films.
Yeah.
It was not the same process that it's now, where you're reading scripts and you're taking decisions. There were times when the director, producer would just tell us just one line thread story, and we were accepting roles just on those bases. There was no story, there were no dialogues that were given to us to prepare beforehand. It was just a simple thread कि story जी ये है कि ऐसा ऐसा होता है और ऐसा ऐसा होगा और फिर end में ऐसा ऐसा हो जाता है. So it was just a beginning, mid and end. And there wasn't like a conscious effort to even convince us.
Correct. Bound script, so there was no concept.
No, because it was like, अच्छा आप नहीं करेंगे तो कोई और कर लेगा. So we've also been through the time where we were like, I was just accepting films that my parents were like, okay Rani, today you have to go to Film City. अच्छा कल आपका फिल्मिस्तान में है और आज आपको यहाँ पे शूटिंग कर रहे हैं और वहाँ से आपको उधर जाना है. So I've also been through an age where I don't know better. I think wisdom comes with age. So I think when I started to receive fan mails, because at that time social media wasn't there, we wouldn't know instantly. We were not told what people were liking or people were not liking. There were these letters that used to come, and through my letters I started to realize what my audience wants out of me, what they like about my work, which film they liked, which film they didn't like. It was more in my letters that I read. And then I realized that, oh my God, something that I'm taking as a means to an end for me. Like I'm trying to earn probably the jam and butter for my family. But what people are giving me is much more than that. They are making me part of their families. They're making me part of their existence. They are actually taking my character seriously. So I think at that point I got more serious, and I said, okay, I think I need to choose my characters more carefully, and that's when Satya happened. And that's when I realized that there is much more to just going to a 9 to 5 job or a 9 to 9 shift, so to say. There is much more than just wanting to get back home. So I was this young teenager doing my job. So for me, I used to want my time back home. So I used to be the happiest person when they used to say pack up. And that was my teenage years. Those were my young days, where I was, waiting for the director to say, okay, Rani, your work for today is done. And I was like, okay, I need to go back home, But then times changed, where I used to be wanting to be on a film set, longer than the required time that I've given, because I want to be part of the filmmaking process. I want to spend time with my director. I want to spend time with my technicians team. I want to know the process. So it's been a time where I've also evolved with my films.
Yeah.
Like I've grown up in cinema. Like they could say that I'm their child.
Yeah.
Like I've literally grown up with so many directors, so many technicians, where they've seen me, you've seen me young Rajiv. We were together on a flight where we were going for the Gulam premiere. And you've seen me when I was 18 years old, and now you see me now in my 40s. So you see, you've seen me evolve. So there are so many people who I've grown up with. I have learned so much from my seniors, from my colleagues. You know, it's just been a learning process. And believe me when I say that, the learning never stops. You know, it is a learning that we have to continue. We cannot confidently say that we know it all. Like how many ever number of films you do, how many ever, uh, you know, successes you have. But there is the nervousness, there is the excitement with each release, there is nervousness with each release. There is a sense of learning with each film, with each character, with each people who we meet new and we learn from. So it's an ongoing process.
Rani, I want to zoom out a little bit. While the last year was a good year for the Hindi film industry, there were films that did very well. I think it's fair to say, and I think most people would agree that we've seen a lot of the films from the South perform exceptionally well. We've seen a lot of, and just the some of the examples are, of course, Pushpa and Kantara and KGF, and filmmakers like Rajamouli and Atlee and Sandeep Vanga Reddy, they've got their finger on the pulse of the audience in a way that maybe a lot of the Hindi filmmakers, just the volume of Hindi filmmakers that used to have it, don't anymore. What do you think the South filmmakers and the South industry is getting right?
I think, like in most cases, I would not say all.
Sure.
You know, they want to listen to still to what the audiences want. Somewhere down the line, maybe when there is so much evolvement in cinema, you know, when cinema is evolving and everybody's trying to cater to a diverse kind of audience, sometimes you lose in touch with the popular, I would say, popular or the massive want of an audience to see simple storytelling, you know, as opposed to storytelling which is more diverse or more evolved or more for a certain section of audiences. So I think maybe they are still very simple at heart, and they are probably connecting with the simple storytelling that the audiences want from the filmmakers, and that's what they're recognizing and they're doing. I have worked with a lot of South Indian filmmakers in my career, and I've learned a lot from them. You know, the most fascinating part about the South industry is what I see is that there's a lot of unity. You know, they stand together, they support each other. Like I see so many of these events where, you know, directors are going for each other's, you know, music opening or their films announcements, and they're standing together, and also actors, you know, where they stand. And of course, it happens in our industry as well. But I think learning, as I say, you know, the beautiful part is when you talk to them, they say that they've learned from us. And when you talk to us, we say we learn from them. And it's always a give and take, you know. And what's beautiful here is that Indian cinema is learning and looking inwards now. You know, in the middle, they should say that, oh, cinema is inspired from the West, or people are copying the West, or they're getting inspired from the West. Today, it's so nice that people are getting inspired by their own, you know, because we have to make films that have to cater to our audience, you know, and we have to listen to the voice of our audience. So it's wonderful that we are taking amazing feedback from one another. We are getting inspired by each other, and we are helping each other to be the best versions of ourselves.
Rani, you know, you're at this incredible vantage point where you're not just one of the top actresses in the industry, you're also married to one of the biggest studio bosses in the industry. You know, that vantage point allows you to have this view of what are the challenges today involved in making films, where the entertainment and the film landscape is headed. Now, as someone who has that vantage point, as someone who has that perspective, what needs to change for the film business to thrive again?
So I'll give you a small anecdote, you know, a little story. I think people will be, I don't know. So I'd say this during the pandemic time. So Adi had these couple of films that were to be released, the really big films, which were the commercial pot boilers, as we say, which started obviously in the pre-pandemic time. And obviously, unfortunately, when pandemic started, there was a question mark on all the films. And that's the time where I observed my husband closely because there was no talk of films releasing. And of course, there is a business point of view where each film needs to release at a particular time
Right.
for it to be able to sustain the cost that it has incurred for the film. And I remember Adi saying that, and there was a lot of pressure on filmmakers to release all these films on OTT. And a lot of filmmakers were doing that. Their biggest films were releasing on OTT. And I see my husband completely calm and composed. And he was like, with so much conviction. So I would use the word conviction that my husband had. And he said, you know what? These movies were made for theatrical, for the audiences at large to enjoy, and I would want to release these films theatrical. He was being offered a lot of money to release it on OTT, and it was a complete business call where it would be a win-win situation for the OTT platform and for the producers, where he was making profit just releasing it on OTT. But there I see my husband taking this brave call and saying that no, I would not release any of these films on OTT because I believe in the power of Indian cinema, of what it does theatrically. And in time when the films came, all of those films flopped. Because post-pandemic, the whole way audiences were watching content changed overnight because of OTT. And the kind of content they saw globally, just everything changed. And all these films of his that failed at the box office, and he took a complete hit commercially because none of the films did well. And it was like complete depression. People were sad in our company, and that whole conviction that Adi stood with, that no, my movies will release theatrical. We thought that there would be some divine intervention and that he would be rewarded for his conviction of releasing films theatrically, and everything kind of didn't work for us. And then came Pathan. And Pathan changed the entire thing forward, Yash Raj, and it became the highest grossing film. So, जब भगवान देता है फिर छप्पड़ फाड़ के देता है. He just tests you and sees that how much courage you have. And I think Adi had that courage, and I completely, as a colleague of his, I completely salute that, because that I thought was commendable. So when you ask me what are the
What needs to change?
What needs to change is, I think filmmakers need to have more faith in the product that they make, and they should believe in what they make, and they should stand with each other to make that change, And today, Pathan stood the test of time, and that just opened the floodgates for people going into cinemas, And today, again, the times are like we're talking like how we spoke in the pre-pandemic time,
Yeah, we've gone back to the to some degree to the glory days. Might be a bit optimistic, but
normal days.
Normal days.
Let's say the normal days.
Okay. And you were only 18 when your first film came out. When you look at this Gen Z bunch of young actors, do you feel like they could take a page out of, your generation's book, or do you feel like you wish you had their savvy?
So as I already told you about my start, I was clueless.
I'm kind of certain that this generation is not much more clued in, even if they think so.
No, so I always feel that when we as youngsters come into the industry, we always look up to our seniors, or we look up to people who have had more experience than us, to basically learn from them. I'm sure this generation, some of them do want to take a leaf from what we did, but I think because cinema is always evolving, things are always evolving, the kind of filmmaking is like evolving, or the way films are made is evolving. Sometimes it gets difficult to actually take a leaf from anybody's career, because you have to shape your own career the way you deem fit.
Right.
So I would say that things for them are much tougher today because they want instant gratification through social media. They are also always worried as to what will happen even after a conversation they would have in a public platform. So everything is scrutinized much more, and everybody is on tenterhooks as to not make mistakes. Um, and luckily for me, because I'm not on social media, I don't know what's going on. So I say whatever I have to say.
You know, that was going to be my last question. Social media is such an almost integral part of an actor's toolbox today. I mean, they use it to promote their films, promote themselves. It's also a revenue driver today. How do you resist the temptation to not be on Instagram?
Because I have a bunch of amazing fans of mine who keep promoting me all the time. Whether or not I promote myself, they are constantly doing that for me. So I'm very lucky to have a great fan following and my dedicated fan groups who keep me alive through this generation as well and remind people who I am. I obviously don't do many advertisements. So obviously I'm not there in the faces of people or on television all the time. So yes, my films kind of do that work for me. Also because I like to keep a very simple life for myself. I just feel the more we get engaged in different things, we have to give it our best. That's the way I am. And I would like to do things where I can give my 100%. Maybe for social media, I would not be able to give my 100%, so I don't want to take that extra burden, that extra load of what I need to do. So I feel the way it's going is great. The fact that people went to see my film, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, makes me happy that they still recognize me and they still know me, and they still want to see my film, which is amazing. And I would continue to keep wanting to push the bar, keep wanting to push my boundaries as an actor, and it's always great to keep waiting for that one role or that one character to come by, which inspires me and which will inspire generations to come. Yeah, so that's something that I keep waiting for.
Well, one expects nothing less than that from you. Rani Mukherjee, thank you so much. Thank you for the movies, for some incredible performances over the years. I'm told time's up, but I really must say on behalf of the group that you've really inspired us, you've entertained us over the years, and you don't stop, and you shouldn't stop. Cannot wait to see what you do next.
Thank you, and thank you to all my audiences over the years who have actually given me so much feedback about my work, about my films. Though you all don't know how much it makes a difference in our lives, it does, because we do read it, we do understand, what you like, what you don't like, and for us it's always a learning to know what we can do to better ourselves, to actually better our films. And to tell you frankly, everybody in our industry is working day and night to just get some kind of entertainment in everybody's life. So we are working really hard for that. And thank you for being our support through the years. Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody. Thank you Rani sir. Thank you Rani ma'am. And trust me, simplicity goes a long way, ma'am. Ma'am, एक सवाल है आपसे जो मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि जब मैंने यहाँ फिकी फ्रेम्स की शुरुआत की थी, तो यश सर जैसे आपने कहा, he's been such an inspiration for all of us and been part of this journey for Ficky Frames. आदि सर कब आएंगे यहाँ स्टेज पे? उनको कैसे लाया जाए?
वो तो आपको उन्हीं से पूछना पड़ेगा.
मतलब मैं पीछे भी ये सवाल पूछने को मुझे मना कर रहे थे, मैं बोला एक बार तो मैं मैम को पूछूंगा, क्योंकि बिग बॉस की जैसे आवाज सुनाई देती है, and he's such an entity, larger than life, and the man with the plan. So is it possible आप रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे हमारी तरफ से?
No, I think वो actually 27 साल पहले I think वो बाहर आए थे, फिर 27 साल बाद वो रोमांटिक्स में बाहर आए, अभी वापस 27 साल बाद शायद वापस अपना चेहरा दिखाने आएंगे.
ऐसा तो नहीं कि बाहर आपका इंतजार भी कर रहे हैं. But ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Rani Mukherji.